Welcome to Shifting the MS Mindset, the podcast. Join your host, Kathleen Loren, along with special guests. It's time to take back our power and ownership of our bodies, our mindset, our life. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
Hello, family. Hey, my people. So this week, starting today, the 22nd of April to the 28th till Sunday, is MS Awareness Week. Yes, so I'm rocking the orange t-shirt. Orange is not my favorite color, but it is what it is. It's for the cause. It's for MS, multiple sclerosis. Anyway, we've got a very, very amazing person as a guest host today. Samantha Josephs is a nutritionist. And I'm just going to tell you all, I'm reading from my phone, by the way. I'm going to tell you to jumpstart your health journey with the latest episode of my podcast with Samantha Joseph leading us. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you. Hi, Kathleen. Thank you for having me. Did you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Samantha Josephs, but you can call me Sam because that's what my friends call me. If you call me Samantha, then make me uncomfortable, like you're angry with me or something. I'm a band-registered nutritional therapist. I qualified in 2008, and I work in North London seeing clients on a one-to-one basis. But my connection to MS is through my husband. My husband was diagnosed with the condition in 2002. So for a long time now, we've been living with multiple sclerosis. It was obviously a very scary time for us. It was almost his 30th birthday, if not literally the day or two after his 30th birthday when we got the official diagnosis. They did try and give us that advice of, go away, wait for another relapse in order to be given that definitive diagnosis. And this was before MRI scans as well. So it was based on the lumbar puncture and his presenting symptoms, which weren't very extreme, really. It was the MS girdle was his main symptom, that sort of tightness, sort of crushing feeling around the middle. As well as some sort of tingling and sensory issues. And yeah, it was a very frightening time. It was before we were married.
Before we were married?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we were married. And yeah, they wanted us to just go away and wait for another relapse. And I think that still stands today. From what I hear with a lot of my clients, sometimes that's the advice neurologists are giving a bit more, that it's likely MS, but maybe for another relapse to get that confirmation.
Yeah.
And that was really scary for us. And we asked the neurologist at the time, what can we do? This is back in 2002. So there was only a handful of medications. It was pretty much beta interferon or Copaxone. And the advice was different then to how it is now. Now people are encouraged to be sort of more aggressive with medication. But back then it was more, try it if you want, or just see how you go. But we wanted to know, what can we do? Is there something we can do to kind of take control of this? And we were given the answer no. Which it didn't sit right with me. I think if you're told you've got a heart condition or, various other things, you are, there is often something in a lifestyle manner that you could change that could improve your health. So, yeah, so the first thing we did was we discovered MS UK. Yeah, and they were great. They had a Samaritan helpline, and we spoke to people there, and we heard about the sort of the MS centres that they have around London. And we bought the book by Judy Graham, which is very much about managing MS, naturally. And we learned a bit about some of the background around how diet could be impactful.
Absolutely.
And so that was kind of what began our journey with MS. And then it was some years later that I qualified as a nutritional therapist. And it didn't really occur to me to kind of focus on MS and diet. I was sort of newly qualified and wanting to explore a multitude of conditions and ways to help people.
Right.
And it over the years, things more organically kind of came about, that people just started looking me up and hearing about a nutritionist in North London who understood MS and who lives with MS, with a loved one. So sort of more over the years, my practice has built up so much so that a huge proportion of people that I see are people who have MS.
Right.
So I have quite a lot of experience of managing people's health, using diet as one of the, the cornerstones of living well, really.
That's right. Going back to your husband, and I know it's about nutrition right now, but how long did it take, just being nosy, for him to achieve his diagnosis?
About 6 months. About 6 months, which is quite quick, because I know it can go on and on. But I feel like that was about 6 months to get to the point where we were told, go away and wait for another relapse. But we took that as a diagnosis at that point. We weren't about to just go away and wait to get ill again. So, yeah. And he was pretty well. So it came as a real shock. It came as a real shock out of the blue. A few sensory sensations, and suddenly, your world's turned upside down, and you've got a chronic condition that didn't really have a particularly good reputation, to be honest.
No.
I mean,
anyway.
Thankfully, it's changed a lot.
Yeah, and is he living well under your, what's the word, guidance?
Guidance, yeah. So yeah, he does, and he's kind of lucky that I'm the one that cooks and thinks about meals, and but he's very good with his physio. He's very keen to make sure that he keeps up with his exercise every week, and he meditates twice a day as well. He did a course in transcendental meditation, and he meditates twice a day every day. So yeah, he makes sure that he gets good sleep, and so he does ownership as well.
Yeah. So can you tell me a bit more about yourself? Because what you're saying that your husband is following, and what you're, guiding him to get into, it sounds similar. It sounds very familiar to me with the overcoming MS. So So when we first got the diagnosis, and I'm one of those people that, does sort of like to research things and find out information and read all the books and that kind of stuff. And I read quite a lot about
some of the dietary factors that were suggested around multiple sclerosis. And then when I qualified as a nutritional therapist, I obviously had, more skills as well to also learn more about that. And I came across the book that Professor Jelinek published. At the time, I don't think it was called Overcoming MS. It was called a guide to overcoming MS or something like that, or MS recovery or something.
Right.
And that was like an absolute Bible, because a doctor had gone away and done all the research in over 1,000 different medical papers and had collated into sort of easy to read chapters the evidence around what we know about diet, about exercise, about stress management, about all these things, and put it together in what he called the Overcoming MS Recovery Program. At the time, that's what it was called. And it was very similar with what I had also been learning, and also what I'd seen with the Best Bet diet, which is the diet that Judy Graham and MS UK was suggesting as well. And we were following, my husband was following that at home as well. And he noticed, for example, when he gave up dairy, he noticed an immediate effect in terms of the tingling, the sensory symptoms that he was experiencing. He used to love eating full fat cheese and all different cheeses and stuff. And he used to say to me, "Oh, I get that cheese feeling." And we used to laugh about it. He was like, "Don't you get it too?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean." And he said, "I get this kind of like prickling, tingling all over my forehead when I eat cheese."
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, he gave up cheese and dairy after kind of reading some of the stuff out there, and noticed overnight improvements in some of his sensory symptoms. He also lost a bit of weight, which he needed to lose a little bit at the time. He was a little bit getting chubby. And he just generally felt much better.
And
And he managed really, really well. And people would say, "Oh, why have you got him on such a strict diet? Let him have it. Let him eat the whatever it was." And it would be like, "Well, it's not. I'm not letting him. It's his. And he would say, "I don't want it. That doesn't appeal to me. That doesn't feel good food to me. That doesn't work for me." So it was kind of back in the sort of, well, it's a few years ago now, but back in the early 2000s, for some people I think it felt like he was really restricting himself. But I think our attitudes to diet and how different people flourish on different eating patterns to other people and stuff, I think the whole kind of idea around that has evolved a lot more. And we understand now that, you're not necessarily restricting, you're making different choices. And he was choosing what was better for him. And now there are so many sort of alternatives, like the whole world of, plant-based milks has just made, a whole load of alternatives out there
and that
make life easier.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a question from someone from the audience, basically, Neo Hart. His question was, is plant-based a good way to go? So a plant-based diet.
Yeah. So short answer, yes. It's got to be a high quality plant-based diet, because a plant-based diet,
almond milk.
Well, like a plant-based diet that's just sort of relying on things like fake burgers and sausages and fake chicken nuggets and those kind of foods.
Yeah.
No. But a plant-based diet that's rich in beans and lentils and tofu and lots of fruit and vegetables, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. You know, as long as you're taking your vitamin B12, because on a plant-based diet, you can't get vitamin B12. You have to get it through animal-based products. So make sure you're getting your vitamin B12 as an extra supplement. And then, yes, definitely, because it's naturally low in saturated fat and because it's very rich in a variety of plant foods that we know give us lots of fiber, that give us a happy, healthy profile of bacteria in the gut microbiome, that makes a really nice anti-inflammatory state in the body. So because a lot of the symptoms, particularly of relapsing remitting MS, are driven by inflammation. And we now understand that the secondary progressive and the smoldering MS is also potentially driven with different patterns of inflammation.
Yeah.
It is important to keep that anti-inflammatory element by having lots of plant foods in the diet.
Right.
So even if you're not plant-based, there's a term plant-focused, which I like to use with my clients. So that's really making sure that there are lots and lots of different plant-based foods in the diet. Nuts, seeds, beans, lentils, fruits, vegetables, you know, lots of different varieties, herbs and spices, all of those things on a regular basis in the diet.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got another question about supplements. What kind of supplements are crucial with regards to the diets that you probably want MSers to be kind of almost affiliated with? So like the OMS diet, you know, the best bet diet, you know. Swank diet. So what vitamins, you know, vitamin B3, of course, but
well, yeah, D3. D3 is the one. Apart from vitamin D3, which everyone with MS should be taking in a decent amount, and ideally, your GP should and could test you for vitamin D so you can understand what your levels are. And you want to make sure that your levels are above the recommended levels for the general population, because it's that much more important for people with
vitamin D. Yes.
Vitamin D. And we are so void. So vitamin D you can't really get from food. You get it a little bit in oily fish. And I think some of the mushrooms and things they now say, but very, very small amounts. And quite often you might see vitamin D supplements in like 400 IU or something like that. But people with MS probably need to be taking at least 4,000 IU every day of vitamin D.
Every day?
Every day. Yeah. And that vitamin D is fat soluble. So not only do you need to take it every day, but you need to take it with a meal, because if you don't, then you're less likely to absorb it as well. So what I do with my clients, and also the Overcoming MS program, we can talk about that in a moment, but it's a lifestyle approach to managing MS, and I also work with them as one of their senior facilitators, doing webinars and retreats and various content and things. And they recommend, and I do this with my clients, if you can't get a test from the GP, you can test your levels privately. There's a company called Better You, and it costs £33. And they send you a kit, you prick your finger, you put a few spots onto some blotting paper and put it back in the post. It goes off to a hospital up in, I think it's up in Middlesbrough somewhere.
Right.
And they tell you your vitamin D level. So the normal population, they will tell you the GP will tell you that anywhere between sort of 60 and 80, 60 and 90 is an optimal level of vitamin D.
Right. Okay.
I know there was
it's low. Yeah.
Okay, so the thing about vitamin D and the sort of connection with MS is there's possibly some shared genes that make you susceptible to getting MS, but also make you less able to absorb vitamin D. So this is possibly where the connection comes in.
So is that why you eat food while you take your supplement then?
So vitamin D is a fat-soluble supplement, so it needs fat in order to get absorbed into the body, because we're used to getting it, as part of really get it from the sun. Your primary source of vitamin D is from the sun. But here we are going into May and it's freezing. We've got no sun. And unless the sun is strong enough to tan your skin, it's not making vitamin D.
And the thing is, now we're talking about complexions and stuff like that. You could more easily get vitamin D, not me.
Yeah,
I have to work.
The harder your skin has to work to make the vitamin D as well. Yeah. So if you're olive or black, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to potentially. Well, you've got to be in the sun to get more. But you're also more likely as well to be deficient. And so they've seen this with the sort of the geographical studies that show the further you live from the equator, in those kind of hot, sunny climates, the higher your risk of of multiple sclerosis. So this is Scotland, Canada. We have some of the highest rates of multiple sclerosis. And they believe it's to do with vitamin D, manufacture of vitamin D in the skin. So really, we need to be keeping our levels over 100 nanomoles. And if you have MS, it's totally safe and probably recommended to keep those levels more like 150 nanomoles. And that might mean, for someone like yourself, Kathleen, taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day.
Wow.
So that's quite a high dose. And GPs and doctors might sort of go, oh, I'm not really too sure about that or familiar with that. And that's why we recommend testing twice a year as well, because then you can keep an eye on it. And if it's just going to be £33, really worth it. And I also recommend it if my clients who have MS, if they could also test their children as well. And just make sure that their kids are getting a vitamin D supplement. If, for example, you're using, and I don't work for Better You, and I don't, but the company Better You that does the testing also makes that spray. You might have seen them. They're a vitamin D spray that just goes under your tongue. And because it doesn't go into your digestive system, you can absorb it without having to eat a meal. And for kids, and people who are on the go or a bit forgetful or whatever, it's also a really great way to keep yourself topped up with the vitamin D3. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's so funny that you say that, like testing my kids, because I've got 3 of them, and you know what they used to say anyway when I first got diagnosed, that what is it? 33% of my siblings or my offspring would more than likely contract multiple sclerosis. I don't know where I read it, but I read it years ago. And I've got 3 kids, so I'm like, one of you may be in that boat.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not sure the risk is quite that high.
Yeah.
But it's definitely
3%,
more increased than
3%.
it is for the regular population. I think
Yeah.
your risk of getting MS, if you have no relative with MS, your risk of getting MS is about 1 in 1,000. And I think that comes down to about 1 in 40 if
Right.
you have a 4th degree relative, a sibling or a parent with MS. So if they're big enough and they're not going to cry because you do a little finger prick, then it's worth testing them.
Yeah.
And when you do the test, like I said, I'm not affiliated with Better You, the company, in any way, but you do the test, it costs £33, and they give you a voucher for a free supplement as well. So you get the test and a supplement with it. And it just tastes like peppermint and and it's important to make sure you get vitamin D3 as opposed to D2, because D3 is the active version of vitamin D.
Right. Okay.
But so to come back to your point about supplements, if you are diagnosed with a chronic health condition such as multiple sclerosis, you would be well advised to eat a healthy and high quality diet. And by high quality diet, I mean, not too many processed foods, avoiding junk foods, avoiding deep fried foods, making sure you have lots of fruit and vegetables, the plant proteins like the nuts and seeds and beans and pulses, things like oily fish, not too much meat, not too much dairy and saturated fats, choosing things like brown rice and brown bread over the white versions, that's what we call like a high quality diet. And that's where a lot of the research is really now collecting and agreeing that a high quality diet is what is needed to reduce things like disability progression, fatigue, and improve quality of life for people who have MS. And if you're following that kind of dietary pattern, you shouldn't really need any other supplements.
No.
Your food, as long as you've got to chew your food thoroughly, enjoy your meal times, don't eat in a hurry, and keep the sort of the low quality rubbish to a minimum, then you really shouldn't need many supplements. As a nutritional therapist, I'm always advising my clients that a supplement is just that. It is just a supplement. It adds to what you are already doing. So before I give my clients any supplements, and that's, I do use supplements in my practice. We use them in particular certain ways in which we might want to sort of enhance a given result. But first and foremost, we have to get the diet right, and you have to tackle the diet, because you can take as many supplements as you want, and they're not going to touch the slide if you're eating a low quality diet. So it's really, really important to not waste money on the supplements, but spend it on some good food.
That was.
Having said that, there are a couple of things that are showing interesting promise in a couple of studies that are being done. There's something called alpha lipoic acid, which is an antioxidant. Fat soluble and water soluble. And actually it's being tested now in the octopus study. They're testing it, maybe they're testing it against one of the medications. I'm not sure what it's being pitched against, but Sorry, my dog's having a bit of a cough behind.
Sorry.
And alpha lipoic acid was shown to reduce brain shrinkage in secondary progressive MS at quite high doses, 1,200 milligrams a day.
Oh my God.
So that's usually well, you can buy it in sort of 600 milligram doses. So that would be taking it twice a day, and that could be protective against brain shrinkage.
Good.
Yeah. Another supplement which I think is potentially showing interesting promise is the medicinal mushrooms, the world of medicinal mushrooms. So things are like turkey tail and so on. So
Oh
there's
my God.
yeah. Are you using medicinal mushrooms?
All of them, yeah, all the medicinal ones,
Yeah.
definitely. And my shaman has got me on, microdosing, amanita mushroom, the mushroom, the red one with the white spots, Super Mario
Oh,
mushrooms.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're microdosing on them. And yeah, I take lion's mane, I take reishi mushrooms,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with
So
it.
I think the reishi is like a really good all-round anti-inflammatory, and I
Yes.
think the lion's mane is showing some interesting properties as a nootropic, or actually being not just able to affect mood and things, but also to grow new nerve cells.
Yes.
So what it does is it encourages production of something called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Okay.
So that means neurotrophic means new neurons, growing new neurons. So this could be helpful if you have multiple sclerosis and you have damaged pathways. The
Yeah.
idea that you could potentially grow new pathways
Yeah.
by using factors like lion's mane mushroom is really exciting. I don't think the studies are giving us definitive proof of that yet.
Right.
But certainly, I think it's an interesting area, and yeah, looking forward to more conclusive studies and research being done into it. Certainly, no side effects, no negative side effects. So that's also really good. Yeah, important. But I'm not a big. I don't rely on supplements. I really want my clients to sort of spend their money and their time and energy on eating right, because I think there are studies that show when we take things as a supplement, because we're taking it in a different way than it perhaps occurs in nature,
Yeah.
it doesn't really get used in the body quite as efficiently as it might do, as if we eat it in nature. So taking a zinc supplement might not be as helpful as including shellfish in the diet, which are rich in zinc naturally, because of the way that zinc behaves in the body. Yeah.
Right.
And
So
it's important.
what would you say should be on a standard MS's dinner plate? What things should they include? What should I include?
Okay,
And
that's a great
really
question.
bad appetite. I'm such a fussy eater.
Right. Okay. Oh, so maybe you're not going to like the thing that I'm going to say first.
Go on. I
which
love
is oily fish.
I love it.
Okay.
Love salmon. Love it.
Okay. So salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardines, herring, and trout. Smashed. If you think the acronym SMASHT, SMAHT, smashed.
Yeah.
Those are your oily fish, cold water fish, and they are a really potent source of omega-3 fatty acids, which have a very calming and dampening effect on inflammation. So they have a powerful anti-inflammatory effect on the body. So I would love to see maybe some grilled mackerel, maybe some poached salmon or baked salmon, or even a piece of trout wrapped up in a bit of baking paper and baked in the oven, a slice of lemon or something. And then alongside that, I would like to see lots of colours. So the idea of this, eat a rainbow and have that
Right.
rainbow on your plate. And that
Okay.
could be something um, like a red cabbage slaw, mixed up with, so using a red cabbage instead of white to bring in some of that purple kind of color to the plate.
Right.
It could be something like roasted peppers in reds and greens. It could be something like making sure that you have some dark green leafy veg, something like kale or some
Mm.
broccoli as well, steamed on the side, and then maybe having like some boiled potatoes, but mixed together with garlic and lots of herbs like dill and parsley
Yeah.
and extra virgin olive oil, or even drizzling a little bit of flaxseed oil
Mm.
onto your cooked veggies, because flaxseed oil again is very, very rich in
Yeah.
omega-3, which is the anti-inflammatory fatty
Yeah.
acid to calm inflammation. So getting the oils like omega-3, but then
Yeah.
getting all the colors. The colors
Yeah.
are also antioxidants. Different
Right.
colors, all kinds of antioxidants. So
Right.
when you have a rainbow, you're kind of getting the full orchestra of different antioxidants that are controlling inflammation in all different ways in the body.
Wow.
So so even if you don't get it on your one plate,
Yeah.
trying to get it during the day,
Throughout the day.
during the
Yeah.
week. Yeah, red berries at breakfast time,
Yeah.
dark green leafy salad at
Mhm.
lunchtime, beetroot or red cabbage, something in the evening, and thinking about, where we're bringing in those colors.
Yes.
And like I said, the brilliant thing about the colors is that, a brown onion and a red onion are different colors. So they're bringing in different antioxidants. So if you're
That's
using onions every day, all you need to do is sometimes buy red instead of the brown for a change.
yes.
If you buy
Yeah.
cabbage once a week, sometimes buy red instead of white or green. Um,
Mhm.
Peppers, green peppers, red, yellow, orange. They all have different potency in different ways.
Yes.
So I think, so that would be my sort of ideal dinner plate, making sure
Yeah.
that there's some of those omega-3s.
Yeah.
And if you're not having oily fish, an easy way to get that could be something like a nice chili sin carne, a nice bean chili, where you have
Mm.
lots of
Mm.
protein from a mixture of kidney beans and white beans or something. You
Oh,
have
yes.
lots of nice, paprika and nice sort of flavors in the
And you
spices as
see,
well.
yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, and you see where it's quite spicy. Are they quite good for giving us a bit more energy? Because that was another question I wanted to ask you. What kind of diet would you give to somebody that lacks that energy, is fatigued,
Yeah,
you know? So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I think when we think about fatigue, and MS fatigue is not the same as somebody's
He's
feeling
tired.
tired at the end of
Yeah.
a busy week. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is ensure that there is as little of that kind of general fatigue that we all get,
Hmm.
pulling that person with MS on top
Hmm.
of the MS fatigue. So the
Yeah.
first thing to do is kind of try and make sure that your diet is well balanced in terms of not having too much sugar, but having plenty of fiber and enough protein as well to kind of keep your energy levels on an even keel. You don't want these peaks and troughs of
Right.
energy highs from, something like a sugary breakfast cereal and a black
Hmm.
coffee in the morning is going to give you a big sugar high, but
Hmm.
that's going to cause a slump later on. So instead, having something like mashed avocado on a piece of whole grain toast, is going to keep you a bit more leveled out. So that's the first thing in terms of managing your energy level. The second thing is to focus again on those anti-inflammatory foods in order to kind of control that symptom of MS, which is contributing to the fatigue. So again, the colour, the vibrancy that give you energy, and making sure that you get sufficient protein as well. We talk about protein a lot, and people are slightly overexcited about probably eating more than we need to, but having a little bit of protein each meal and snack will keep you, so a piece of fruit in the afternoon is a great snack, but if you add a little handful of nuts in there and you get some protein in that as well, that might be enough to avoid that energy slump. I mentioned coffee, and the evidence around coffee is that it has neuroprotective effects as well. So it can be helpful. People with MS do find that it's helpful to have that afternoon coffee and preempt that afternoon slump. It does catch up with you eventually. Coffee sort of stalls that sort of tired molecules from kind of expressing in the brain, and it does catch up eventually. But getting through the daylight hours, as long as it doesn't interfere with sleep at the end of the night or interfere with bladder function or anything, then coffee is useful as well. But it is a difficult symptom to manage. Having a high quality diet, again, is one of the factors that they found to improve fatigue in some of the studies. And I mean, if people are confused about what a high quality diet is something like the Overcoming MS program, if you go to overcomingms.org and have a look at their website and their recommendations for the diet, they're a lifestyle program. So they're looking at the whole picture. They're looking at diet, but they're also looking at physical activity, stress management, medication, all of those things that support someone with MS. But their framework for the diet is a really clear guideline, I suppose, for what has come up in the evidence around what's beneficial and what is less beneficial for people with MS, and what constitutes a high quality diet. So this is rich in omega-3s, rich in plant proteins, fruit and vegetables, whole grains, and then kind of, much reduced levels of things like saturated fats and sugars and junk foods, I suppose.
Okay. Wow. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. So we've got the balanced diets and everything, but weight management is crucial for those that are overweight. Why do you agree? First of all, do you agree?
So the studies suggest that being overweight or having a higher BMI, which is a body mass index, is an increased risk factor for increased progression. And one of the reasons for that is the comorbidities and the other illnesses that are likely to arise as a result of being very overweight. Things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, those kinds of things. You are more at risk of that if you are overweight. Your cardiovascular risk is potentially higher as well if you have MS. There seems to be some crossover there. So being overweight means you might be more likely to have other conditions going on. And when your body is struggling with other conditions, it ramps up the activity of the MS as well.
Yeah.
So it is a good idea to try and eat a low saturated fat diet. Concentrate on the good fats. Don't have a low fat diet, but have high good fats in the diet. Things like avocado, olive oil, oily fish, nuts and seeds. Just stay away from fats from processed meats and steak and dairy and things like that. And then try and fill your plate with at least half vegetables.
Yeah.
And that's kind of quite a good guideline in terms of sort of managing what your plate looks like in order to manage weight. Make sure you're properly hydrated as well, because some people mistake thirst for hunger, where you get that feeling of, oh, I just want something. Oh, I still don't feel satisfied. And we keep eating. And actually, we're just thirsty. And one of the dangers with MS, and one of the symptoms that affects a lot of people with MS, is an overactive bladder. And people often end up becoming dehydrated because they're trying to control for that symptom. But actually, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because you need the fluids, you need the water. It's complicated, but you know, it also, but I mean, it, you know, sort of just focusing on the good stuff and trying not to beat yourself up about, you know, lazy days or tired, you know, fatigue when you may be reaching for things you shouldn't, but just really just trying to focus on the good stuff. And I think, you know, if you're going to have something that you think is maybe less healthy that should be on your plate, what can you add to that? Can you pimp it up in some way? Can you sprinkle on some seeds? Can you have an extra portion of these? Can you snack on some fruit? Can you do something else to address that and make switch the way the diet's going to be more healthful?
That's amazing, because you know, you've already gone through it, but I was going to ask you, first of all, what dietary changes that needs to be seen with people who have multiple sclerosis. So you've kind of like covered it, but if you don't mind, please readdress it so that everyone knows your dietary changes starts from, I don't know, an apple, an orange, you know?
Well, I would say that we need to kind of think about, first and foremost, a whole food diet. So that means moving away from some of the sort of packaged things that we tend to rely on. So making sure, you know, to eat an apple rather than a glass of apple juice, or to eat oranges instead of orange juice, or and also, you know, adding in some of the foods that we know are good for us and healthy, things like beans and lentils and whole grains, which are naturally low in fat, which is important when we talk about weight management. They're low in saturated fat, which is important when we talk about MS in general. And they're very high in fiber, which is important from an MS perspective because constipation can often be an issue, but also it's the fiber that feed the all-important healthy bacteria, the microbiome, the healthy microbiome. And if we have a healthy microbiome, that also helps to control inflammation in the body. So if you're making, for example, a bolognese with a ground meat or something, can you add a tin of beans to it? So it's not about always taking stuff out. First of all, try and bring stuff in. Can you add extra veggies to it? Could you stir in a bag of spinach? Could you, when you do your onions and garlic, can you add chopped celery to that as well? And You know, you when I make tomato sauces and stuff, I just grate in courgette, grate in carrot, because it adds bulk. It sort of disappears quite quickly and easily into the sauce. So it doesn't really bring anything in terms of altered flavor or make my kids freak out. Oh, what are you feeding me? So, you know, again, it's kind of quite a nice, you know, just thinking about bringing it in. What can I bring in? Can I put an extra portion of veggies on my plate? Can I have, you know, an extra piece of fruit with my bowl of cereal? If I'm having a bowl of cereal, can I sprinkle on some nuts? Can I add a bit of cinnamon? Can I have a piece of fruit? You know, what can I add into the diet? And when you start adding those good things in, quite naturally, you'll find there's less room on the plate for the stuff that you don't want there. And that can happen quite organically and in its own way, that you'll just bring the good stuff in, and the other stuff kind of gets crowded out. And, you know, I mean, the evidence around dairy as possibly and probably not being a good idea for people with MS. So I would say bring in all that good stuff and maybe think about getting the dairy out. And then you're really on your way to something that looks like a high quality diet that is really beneficial for someone with MS. Yeah. If you can, I mean, the government recommend that we should have 2 portions of oily fish a week. Actually, the studies suggest 3 portions a week. As is where the magic is. So can you have a portion of salmon? Could you have some tinned sardines? And maybe could you have a bit of mackerel in a week? If you can get those in as well.
Yeah.
That's a lot, isn't it? Colours.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense, literally, because it feels like you're eating more clean as well. You know, because when I'm eating like chicken or beef and all that, I don't even touch it now. It feels too heavy. Do you know what I mean? And I don't like that feeling of being heavy and I feel like I need to sleep because I've eaten something. Do you know what I mean? So I like food very light, and fish does that. Fish does that for me. It's a light meal, but it's still filling, you know. So
So fish and seafood, as well as the oily fish, and then the beans and lentils, like you say, we think of them sometimes as carbs, but actually when you combine beans and lentils with a whole grain, like wholemeal toast, beans on toast, or like a whole grain, like whole brown rice, you know, whole grain brown rice for a chili bean curry. When you combine them, you're actually getting a complete profile of protein.
That's amazing.
So, like you say, you're getting all the benefits of the protein, but without that heaviness in the digestion of the meat, which we know we're all eating far too much of. It's not as healthful as it could be, and there's even some suggestion that we just don't need it. So I think bringing in all those other foods, you know, pimping up the breakfast cereal with nuts and seeds, or snacks with nuts and seeds, drizzling flaxseed oil onto your salads, you know, those kinds of things will help you keep full and satisfied, and they will bring all those anti-inflammatory good oils into the diet as well.
Excellent.
All very anti-inflammatory, which is key, really.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. So how can everyone get hold of you? Because this is amazing. Like everything that you've just said, I'm going to take it on board. Well, I'm already started, but I keep falling off the wagon. You see, you know, what do you think of alcohol?
So alcohol is technically a toxin.
Mm-hmm.
So too much of it is never good. If
Mm-hmm.
you have balance issues, then I doubt alcohol is great for you either. But there have been no specific studies connecting MS or progression of MS to alcohol use. That
Right.
doesn't mean, go out and get sloshed every night. It's it's about moderation, it's about
Moderation.
conviviality, about how you relax,
Yeah.
because relaxing is really important. De-stressing is very important.
Yeah.
Enjoying a nice glass of red wine, with a meal with friends, can be a really important part of your week,
Yeah.
that brings joy and pleasure, and that's
Yeah.
very important. Um, so, so my advice around alcohol is, moderate amounts,
Mm-hmm.
a glass and a half, 2,
Mm-hmm.
3 days a week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why
Yeah.
not?
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of how people can get hold of me,
Yes,
so I'm
please.
at nutritionista.co.uk, although the website is very much due for a revamp.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find me on Instagram at nutritionista_UK.
Mm-hmm.
You can, I think, if anybody else is interested in learning more about, some of the specifics and the evidence around diet, then overcomingms.org is a really good place to start. And they have their lifestyle program is, like I said, a really well thought out, put together, evidence-based framework of
Mm.
how to understand what exercise you put into your life and
Yes.
when you should meditate and
Yeah.
how, and the specifics around. So the diet recommended by Overcoming MS is a whole food, plant-focused diet with
Yeah.
fish and seafood if required, dairy-free, and with extra flaxseed oil added, kind of like a supplement, a good couple of tablespoons a day,
Yeah.
almost supplement level. Um,
Excellent.
and looking at, if you go to their website, also there's loads of free resources, and you can drop in and watch past webinars that I've done talking about diet. There's loads of free resources for people to explore there as well,
Mm.
and get more information. So yeah, it's a nice place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God. No, that's definitely food for thought. You know,
Lot to
definitely food.
digest.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. No, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And you know, you've put a lot in there. Absolutely. But like I said, today is MS Awareness Week, so from today till Sunday, please, what are you doing furthermore, Sam? What are you
For
doing for this week? Yes.
What am I doing for this week? I'm working with clients this
Right.
week. Um, I'm sort of just resting a little bit on the laurels of having done an amazing retreat,
Oh, really?
working on behalf of Overcoming MS. Overcoming
Oh,
MS, we ran a retreat for people with MS in Somerset.
excellent.
When was it? It was the beginning of March, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, no, it was mid March. Yeah, so really not very long ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was very exciting. And I'm looking forward to meeting on Friday, where we're going to be looking at all the stats and figures that we have
Yeah.
about some of the fantastic impact that the retreat had on creating a community, first and
Absolutely.
foremost, of like-minded people who all have MS, who all came to the retreat and shared their experiences, shared their tips and their hacks, shared their stories, and really inspired each other. And we gave them an opportunity to experience the Overcoming MS program with help on meditation and navigating some of the nuances of the diet, doing some yoga, and exploring, you know, the impact of something like an MS diagnosis on themselves and on some of their partners as well. So, so we'll be reflecting on that on Friday, which I'm looking forward to. It was really, really amazing.
That's
privilege
amazing.
to have done that. A great piece of work. Yeah.
For
what about
you? It's MS Awareness Week every week in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're living it. Yeah, we're living it. Ups and downs, but we're living it. Yeah. And you know, goalposts keep changing, but we have to stay flexible and we have to keep adjusting. And that's life. We're evolving.
Absolutely. Wow. Oh, well, all the best to you and your husband, and give him my love. Mwah, 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 mwah. You know, you're one of us. You're a warrior. You are definitely one of us. Yeah. You know, you're fighting power. You're fighting for what we need, you know.
I want to empower people to understand what they can do to help themselves, because I don't like the neurologists, and there are a few of them out there who, you know, take away that sense of hope.
I just want to say, don't even say no more. Don't say no more. When it comes to neurologists, don't say no more. And
listen, I'm not going to tar them all with the same brush, but I want people to know that there's more than a diagnosis. Go and be your best self. Go and eat well and live well and embrace life. Because an MS diagnosis is not the end of something. You know, absolutely not. And it's a fantastic community of people as well to be involved with. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody. And thank you so much, Sam. And I hope to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Bye. Bye. Right. Are we back? And the first card today. Remember, past, present, future, doesn't matter which order, just whatever resonates with you, take it. If you need to take all three, take it. So what? So the first card is Allah, A-L-A, Allah. And that is grief. It's a bit shiny, so you can't possibly see it. Right.
This one is, you are holding unprocessed grief. You want to skip over it and get back to normal, but grief doesn't go away because you ignore it. The only way to healing is to walk through it. Losing a loved one is the ultimate heartbreak, but you also experience grief after breakups, job loss, and disappointments. Self-love and self-care are required. Ask for support. Be gentle with yourself.
Grief. And you know what's so funny about that is next 2 weeks when we come back on here, I am holding a little forum, a group of other MSers that I'm going to ask them, what stage of grieving are you going through? Yeah. And the thing is, they may not assume that they're grieving, But you've got to take into perspective that you are grieving at some level because your life is no longer how it used to be, you see. You're not the person you used to be, you see. So, yeah, whether you're grieving over a lost loved one and they have transitioned to spirit, or the loss of your relationship, the loss of a job, don't worry. Everything is going to be okay. Yes. So the next card is have faith in your dream. And that's more like it. That's more like it. This is what it says.
Don't give up. The situation you're asking about is still taking shape. You're nowhere near the end of the story. Whatever is happening now is just a step along the way. As they say in the self-help classics, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. However, the waxing crescent moon card is a reminder that you must still keep working towards whatever it is you want. If you can't take practical steps, spend time meditating on the question you're asking about and allow your higher self to download information to you about your best next step. Overall, this card suggests there is every reason to be hopeful for a very positive outcome to the situation you're asking about, to keep the faith.
Keep the faith. Yes. So whatever you have been thinking about is coming to you. It's just not going to show itself the way that you foresee it to be shown, but it's on its way. Okay. The next card is a time to give rather than take. Wow. Give rather than take.
When this card comes up, it's time for you to take your stock of your situation. Where are you and where do you want to go? The new moon energy of this card suggests a restart, and the Virgo energy suggests you make the restart a clever one that's simple and well organized. Virgo also has a strong health aspect to it. So if you've been unwell, this card suggests that your health is on the up. Virgo loves clean eating and alternative therapies. So add these into your routines now, however you've been feeling. If a situation is blocked at the moment, it could be that you're overanalyzing things or being too critical. It's time to ask less of what someone else can do for you and to think more about what you can do for others.
Exactly. And that's so that card actually goes in sync with what we were discussing with Sam. You know, you've got to eat clean. You've got to be very mindful of the way or of what you are eating, what you are consuming, whether it's food, whether it's television, whether it's radio. You know, your environment, your environment tells you who you are. It's a little bit like that saying, when you ask the creator, when you ask God, please God, can I have, or can I be, or can I do? God doesn't give you what you want. God gives you who you are. Yeah. So who you are as a person is what you're going to attract back to you, you see. So yeah, that's lovely cards. That is amazing. And I am so thankful. So thankful, so thankful, so thankful. Thank you, people. And I would love to see you in a couple weeks' time once again. Mwah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Shifting the MS Mindset. If you liked what you heard, then be sure to hit like and subscribe. Until next time, remember, we are in control of our destiny. Let's stick together and feel empowered, always. You got this.